Now, for football fans here in the U.S., the National Football League playoffs begin next weekend. That will ultimately lead up to the Super Bowl. Fans are excited, but for players of fantasy football, it's not the final score, it's the stats that matter. Jim Spellman explains.
It's football season in America.
The anxiety level on Twitter is rising by the minute.
But for Denny Carter and the 33 million other people in the U.S. who play fantasy sports, the game looks very different.
I'm only watching one game, and that's my fantasy game. I care far more about fantasy results than real football results.
Carter is the author of How to Think Like a Fantasy Football Winner and owns the Derwood Disasters plus 9 other online fantasy football teams. He follows every game, but looks only at the performance of individual players.
So how does it work? Walk me through building a fantasy football team.
Yeah. In the summer, people come together either online or in person for a draft. They select a quarterback, a couple running backs, a few wide receivers, a tight end. They piece them all together, and they create a lineup that they roll out week in and week out.
Fantasy points are earned when real players perform well in real games. With fantasy players spread across just about every real team, keeping up is tough.
I'm following the statistics for each team all the time. I'm following Twitter. I'm following the games as they go on. It's a lot of information to process.
The expansion of internet access and mobile devices has helped make fantasy sports into a $3 to $4 billion a year industry in the U.S. alone. And it's expected to expand globally as fantasy cricket and soccer leagues begin to grow. Leagues once feared fantasy sports would take away from the real sports experience, but economist Michael Lead says that's not the case.
Fans are more likely to attend games if they participate in fantasy, and the number of games they participate in seems to go up.
So leagues like the NFL have embraced the concept, hoping fantasy fans lead to real profits. Jim Spellman, CCTV, Derwood, Maryland.